Today's guest on the Winning Teams podcast is the author and speaker, Zander Sprague. Now, Zander is the author of a number of books, where we're going to focus primarily on the book he's just published, which is Epic Begins with One Step Forward. Now, he's been successful in the corporate career, and as I said, as an author, and also he's a very much in-demand public speaker. But he really does talk about what it means to have an epic idea, how you actually set about achieving whatever your definition of epic is. And we also talk about, what's the difference between, an intention, a goal, and a dream. But we also really, really focus in on, how important it is to have a process and how important it is to trust that process. And he's got a very interesting take on what I refer, and I won't steal his thunder, on his 97-3 rule. So I will let him share that with you. But very entertaining, very interesting, very, very sharp, very, very intentional, and very, very clear about the steps that one must take in order to create and build an epic life for yourself and for your team. If you enjoy this podcast, really would appreciate if you can give us a review wherever you choose to actually get your podcast from, because that helps us to reach out and to get to more people, which is the whole object of the exercise of having this podcast in the first place. But in the meantime, sit back and enjoy the very interesting Zander Sprague. Zander, thank you indeed for being a guest here on the Winning Teams podcast. It's a great honor to have you here.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm just delighted to be here.
Well, listen, I'm looking forward to this interview. You're the author of 3 books, which includes the one that's just behind you there, The Epic Begins with One Step Forward, and we'll come back and talk a little bit about that. But maybe for our listeners, you might just give a little bit of a snapshot of your background so people have context on where you're coming from and what you do.
Absolutely. Well, I'm a licensed professional clinical counselor. It means I'm a mental health professional. I spent over 20 years in the corporate world doing everything from software development, quality assurance, which I have to say I wasn't as good at, and that's why I stopped doing that, and spent most of my time as a technical instructor. I taught people how to use software. I'm still trying to teach my mom how to, open an email attachment. So that's not one of my success stories here. But anyway, and then, for the last 20 years, I've been speaking on sibling loss, and now really transitioning to a more general motivational speaking. My Epic Begins with One Step Forward I'm so excited about, because I do think all of us have epic dreams that we think about, but we don't do. And I started wondering, why? Why are we not going out after our epics? Right. And look, my speaking is part of my epic journey, and I love it. And so much fun.
And before I dig into the book, what do you mean by epic? What's your definition of epic?
Epic, for me, epic, aside from the general, Webster's, meaning big and, sort of awe-inspiring. For me, when I thought about what does epic mean? For me, epic is every pilgrimage includes commitment. And for me, I don't care what your epic is. Epic could be traveling somewhere, going back to school, running a marathon, writing a book. Whatever your epic is, there is commitment that is involved in that. And I do really think it's you're kind of on a pilgrimage. You're on this long journey. Some of them are longer than others. I went back to graduate school to get my master's and get licensed. That was a 6-year journey.
Wow.
So, and part of the reason it took so long is I live in California. You need 3,000 hours of internship. So that takes a little time to accrue all those hours.
Yeah. So just to kind of keep on with that what your thought. I love the way you defined it, epic, and I know it is very individual because it depends on the individual what it means. But for many people, they don't have their epic, whatever they determine to be their
Well,
epic.
you know, I'm going to argue with you in just this way. I think they're the things that we all think about. We say, oh, I would love to do this. I'd love to go there. I'd love to. I think everyone really does have these big things that they think about doing and yet do nothing about it.
Well, yeah, okay, but I agree with you on that, right? But in the book, you talk about the difference between an intention, a goal, and a dream.
Absolutely.
Right. So maybe talk about that, because everybody has that, oh, I'd love to have this, or I'd love to have that, or I'd love to go here, or I'd love to go there. But, and I'm exaggerating. For an awful lot of people, it never actually goes beyond a thought, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Or an intention. So what is the difference between the intention and a goal and a dream?
Well, I think for me, an intention means I'd like to do that, but I haven't actually set a plan in motion. I haven't taken my first step towards it. A goal is obviously when we start down that road to achieve that. An example from my life was I had always dreamed of running a marathon. I was like, oh, that would be great. And that was it seemed unattainable. But then I started to run and I was like, well, that would be great. I'd love to run the Boston Marathon. I grew up outside of Boston. I watched it as a small kid. I'm like, oh, that would be fun to try someday, having no idea what was involved because, I was 8, what did I know of marathons? And so then there was sort of the intent. I thought about it, but I had no idea how to achieve it. Then I decided that I wanted to learn how to run a marathon. I joined Team in Training, which is a fundraising arm for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. In exchange for raising some money, they taught me how to run a marathon. And that was awesome. And because of that, I was able to run the 2014 Boston Marathon. Now, I do really want to be honest about everything because it is an incredible achievement to be able to run Boston. I did not time qualify. I got in because my younger sister did work for Adidas, who's a corporate sponsor, and Adidas was nice enough to give me a bib.
Huh.
I mean, anyone who runs a marathon goes, oh, wow, we ran Boston. I am not that fast to run.
Right. So from your experience, Zander, what is it that actually gets somebody to go from I'd like to, whatever it could be, I'd like to lose weight, I'd like to talk about that, beginning with that one step forward. How do you actually get from the thought and the intention or the dream or the hope or the aspiration to taking that one step?
Well, obviously everyone's motivation changes, but I think a lot of it is, and I talk about this in the book, about taking some time and thinking about what steps you think you need to do. So it's that idea of saying, I want to do this, but not making any plans and starting to make a plan. Kind of like when we say, I'd like to go to France. Well, okay, I can think about that. But when I actually start to investigate what flights cost, where I wanted to go, all of that, now I'm taking those steps. I've made that decision that I at least want to start to explore something. And certainly we have epic dreams that we would love to do, but we do exploration. We find out that maybe that's not possible for us for any number of reasons: time, money, ability. I don't know about you, John, but I watched the Olympics and think, oh my God, that would be incredible. I simply don't have the athletic ability. I'm also a little old for it now, but I just like, I kind of realized, although I would really love to be great to be an Olympian, of course it would. I think lots of people armchair Olympians, oh, that would be great. And I'd be so proud. And that would be such an epic experience. And it absolutely would be. But I just, I wasn't a fast enough runner. I didn't have that level of ability.
And you talk about having what it is I want to do, which is having the goal, and but yet the failure rate and goal achievement is quite high. What's the balance from your perspective, Zander, and the work that you do? What's the balance in terms of, okay, I got the goal, but I trust the process, or I engage and commit to the process, and allowing the process to actually get me there rather than being fixated about the goal. I mean, weight loss is probably a good example. People who continuously weigh themselves don't tend to actually stick to it, right? So how do you actually get people to really trust the process and stay with the process, and the outcome to staying with the process is that they achieve their goal?
Okay, great question. And the answer is creating structure. I found, I'll go back to my marathon training because it's such an easy example here. I had no idea how I'd ever run 26.2 miles. That is a really long way when you're driving, never mind when you're doing it on foot. But I was handed a training schedule by Team in Training. And it made it so easy because it said, go run 35 minutes. I went and I ran for 30 minutes or 35 minutes. If it said, go run 12 miles, all right, now I go run 12 miles. I didn't need to worry about how I was going to work my way up to it. I had a whole plan. I am a firm believer that people are successful when we have structure, when we have a plan that we can follow. In business, right? You have a business plan. It says you've laid out how you think you're going to do something. You think about the steps that are involved with, making a podcast. What do I need to do what are the steps in order to have a podcast? And they're actually fairly easy to follow because you have steps, kind of like a recipe. You don't know how to cook something, you look at a recipe and it tells you what you need to do in the order in which you need to do it. Now, I also know that it is not a direct route from point A to point B. You may make it to point B, you will make it to point B, but you may go through C, D, and E first. There are roadblocks along the way. There are the unexpected things. And that's where I think flexibility comes in. I drove, I worked in Silicon Valley, but I didn't live in Silicon Valley. So I had to drive there every day. And like most people, I'm a creature of habit. Human beings like structure. We like understanding. Here's how I go. So I drove to work the same way every single day, never entertaining that there may be alternate routes. But one day, the freeways that I took were both blocked, so I couldn't do that. So I had to find a new way to get home. I discovered a way that was slightly longer, but a lot more scenic and a lot more beautiful. And I had that moment where I think we all have, where we've done something the same way, and all of a sudden we discover or are open to a new way to do it, and all of a sudden go, why didn't I think about that years ago? Why wasn't I open to that? And I think that's part of kind of human nature. Once we know how to do something, there's comfort in that. That's where the structure comes in. So often in business, people get stuck. I know as a single entrepreneur, I'll be trying to solve a problem and I spend hours and hours. And then I think, hold on, let me put it out to my community, and someone else solves it for me in 2 minutes. And I think, wow, I just lost 2 hours trying to solve something. And if I'd simply ask the question, hey, John, do you know how to do this? And you're like, well, yeah, I just did that last week. Here's the solution.
The 97-3 rule that you have, can you elaborate on that and explain what that is?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I love the 97-3. Look, being a student of psychology, I look at stuff and I wonder a lot. Why is that? The 97-3 rule, I believe that 97% of your day is really is great. It's fantastic. And up to 3% is not so good. And yet, we as human beings seem to focus on the 3% and ignore the 97. I just don't get it. As I was doing my internship, I was working in a school-based program with middle school and high schoolers here in the United States. And a lot of them were having academic challenges. And I said, what's your least favorite subject? A lot of them said math. I really didn't like math in school. So I was like, okay. And I asked them this question. How would you feel if you got a 97 on your next test? Their face would like, oh my God, I'd be so excited. I would tell everyone. My parents would be so proud. That would be fantastic. I'm like, would you be griping about the 3 points you didn't get? Are you kidding? I just got a 97. I'd be so excited. So why are we focusing on the 3% when up to 97% is really good? Yes, look, we all have days where the not so good is much larger. I'm not ignoring that. But I think in general, our days are really good. Look, I woke up this morning. I get to do this podcast with you. These are really good things. I shouldn't ignore them. There are the things that aren't going to go right today. I can acknowledge them, but move on. Let me give just a further example, okay? In baseball, you make it into the Hall of Fame if you have a lifetime batting average of over 300. That's great. I am not taking anything away from that achievement. But that means that you basically got your job to hit the ball right 1/3 of the time. Let's say you and I are working 9-hour days. In order for us to have a Hall of Fame day, we only have to get it right for 3 hours. That means for 6 hours, we could totally mess up and yet still have a Hall of Fame day. That would be pretty incredible, wouldn't it, John?
Absolutely, but that's the logic of it. So how do you actually, I get the logic, but human nature being what it is, we focus on, as you say, the 3, right? Well, how do we actually shift that so that what is the discipline or the thought process or the mindset that we need to shift to in order to focus on the 97%?
Okay, so now we're going to use a little cognitive psychology here, which is that if we start to notice that we're like, oh, this didn't go right and this didn't go right, literally say stop. What has gone right today? What is good? And I'm talking about everything in your day because there's so much, and yet we just ignore it. I don't know why. It's this, like, again, I don't want to trivialize, but like, I woke up this morning. I didn't doubt I would wake up, but that's still a good start, right?
It's better than the alternative anyway.
Yeah, well, it'd be hard to know that you didn't wake up, but anyway. But I think it's that cognitive behavioral psychology of, if I catch myself focusing on the 3%, let me stop and let me prove to myself with overwhelming data of all of the things that went well. And it is a mind shift, and you have to catch yourself, because I do think that we all sort of are focused on what's not going right. And as I said, ignore what is going right. And it's a practice but the more you do it, like anything, the more you do it, all of a sudden you go, oh, wait, hold on. No, yes, that didn't go right, but all these other things did go right.
Yeah. In a lot of the listeners today that tune into the podcast, they manage and they lead teams, right?
Yep.
So, I mean, what we've been talking about here is, how do you, your own epic journey, how you actually start and how you actually take that first step. But how do you make your team epic?
Okay, that's great. I think there are a couple of things that are really important. I'm a big fan of the Gallup Strength Finders test.
Oh yeah.
I think it's awesome. It's a great way for people to learn what they're really good at. And the whole idea behind that is we should be spending 75% of our day in our strength areas. And when you have a team, wouldn't you as a manager like to know who is good at what? Where are their strengths? Because, so for example, one of my strengths is positivity and communication. I love to be in front of a crowd. So if you were my manager, you're like, I need to have this presented to another, I need a presentation. You ask Zander to do it. You don't ask someone who is more of a strategic thinker, but doesn't have the presentation skills. Even though that strategic person may be able to explain it, they may not present it as well. You would want to use those strengths. I think the other thing is get curious about your team.
Mhm.
Find out what they want to achieve. I think all too often as a manager, you're focused on this, but you don't understand what your team, what their epic is, what they would like to achieve. And you as a manager may find out that, hey, this person has a real aptitude for a job that they're not quite doing yet, but with a little help from me, I can bring them up to speed and get them to do this. And they're actually going to do that really well. And that only benefits me as a manager, that this person is now thriving and is excited about coming to work because they're doing something that they like.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you said there is in terms of being curious about your team. I think it's such a powerful thing to say, and I think that it's a message that I hope managers and leaders hear, because I think that curiosity and not making assumptions or coming to making conclusions about people, what drives them and what doesn't drive them. Zander, this has been great, and we could go on, but I said I would respect your time. Before we wrap up, you can tell people where they can get your book and where they can get in contact with you. Two questions I ask everybody. One is a book other than your own, I have to say, and that's had an impact upon you. So what's the book and what was the impact?
So the book is You're a Badass by Jen Sincero.
Right.
And I really like that book because it sort of spoke to all of the optimism of, we are all incredible people. We shouldn't forget that. And, from that, and in thinking about that and writing the book, one of the things, and I know we're running out of time, but I really want to share this. 2 words that can be so helpful, no matter whether you're an executive or just, doing your own thing. Not yet. Those 2 words are so important. Have you written your book? Not yet. Have you run your marathon? Not yet. We say no, there's a hard stop. Not yet opens up the optimism, right? It says it's possible. And in Jen's book really helped sort of, I thought about it and I thought, yeah, I love not yet.
Language is important, isn't it? I mean, language is just so important.
It is.
It has a very powerful impact on it. Second question to ask everyone: daily rituals. If you have them, you're happy to share them, and what do they do for you?
Okay, well, I talked about structure. Structure is a big part, and that's a ritual for me. Is I know each day what I'm working on and the time frame in which I plan to work on it. So be it marketing, podcasting, editing, video editing, outreach. My day is so much easier when I know from 9 to 10 I'm doing a podcast, from 10 to 11 I'm doing marketing, whatever it is. I think all too often there are multiple things that we have to be doing all at once. But what I have found is that I've yet to meet the person who can be writing an email with their left hand and be, writing a book with their right hand. I haven't found that, right? the fact of the matter is, we are single core minds in a multi-core world. This idea of multitasking, frankly, I don't think it works quite as well as
I
people
agree.
think that it does, because we really, our brains, we can only really highly focus on one thing at a time.
Hmm.
So that structure really helps me know what I'm doing and when I'm doing it, and it gives me comfort. I know I'm not flailing around going, oh my God. Yes, in the middle of something, I might think, oh, wait, I need to do this. I write it down so that I have it written down and plan it in for later in my day if it's got to get done today.
I love that. Zander, this has been fantastic. Where can people reach you? Where can they get your book? How can they get in touch with you? We'll put everything in the show notes, but if they're listening right now, how can they do it right now?
Okay, so if you want to find my book, it's available on Amazon, or you can, any of the major book retailers seem to be carrying my book around the world, which is great. You can go to zandersprague.com. That's ZanderSprague.com. If you just Google Zander Sprague, you will find me. I come up in a lot of stuff. If you want to contact me, there's contact forms on my website. You can click a link off my website to get the book. The book is available in softcover, hardcover, and just out the audiobook. And I really encourage people to step into their epic. And I would be delighted to help any of your audience, whether it's your team or your individually, for you to achieve your epic.
Zander, that is fantastic. I would highly recommend the book. It's a great read and it's really well put together. So I wish you continued success with it. Zander, thank you so much for being a guest today with us. I've really enjoyed this conversation.
Thank you so much. Everyone have a great day.